the Florida Panthers have themselves a pretty big lead for third place in the Atlantic Division. They're pretty much going to make the playoffs, right? Even though they've lost 3 games in a row, they're still out here with 40 points on the year. That is a 7-point lead over the 4th place Detroit Red Wings in the division. So I think it's fair to say that for all intents and purposes, the Florida Panthers are going to make the playoffs this year. They've had some really good performances out of guys like Sam Reinhart, like Sam Bennett, the 1, 2, and 4 selections in the 2014 draft, all belonging to this team, in, of course, those 2 plus Aaron Ekblad. However, even though the Florida Panthers have been a pretty good hockey team this season, it hasn't been all sunshines and rainbows for everybody. First, of course, you have yourselves the positive tests, which is kind of torching the league right now, so it's not just an individual isolated case of Florida Panthers players, but of course, the Panthers being one of the first teams to get shut down by the NHL definitely makes things difficult, but also, for the guys that have just been performing regularly on the team, sure, you have yourselves the Reinharts and the Bennetts and the Ekblads who have been good, but, as we said, it's not all sunshines and rainbows for everybody. Let's talk today about Spencer Knight and how this young NHL goaltender has come into a position where this season has really not been great, statistically speaking, confidence speaking, and even though this isn't what the Florida Panthers fan base would have liked to see, at the very least you have yourselves a pretty good backup, I guess I shouldn't say backup anymore, who is doing his job and playing very well instead. So, Spencer Knight, as we know, was the top goaltending prospect out of the 2019 NHL Entry Draft taken by the Florida Panthers 13th overall. He was a guy that went out there with that generational NTDP squad. Zegras, Hughes, Caulfield, Turcotte, Cam York. Who else was there? Alex Vlasic and John Boucher and Dominic Fensore. There are some really good players on that NTDP squad, and Spencer Knight was the goaltender that carried them to all the success that they had. Now, I say carried, doesn't really mean carried like he individually did it by himself. No, everybody took a big piece of the pie there. Knight, of course, though, being the goaltender, had himself a very important role as well. And Spencer Knight, playing in the Boston College system after getting drafted, was a very stellar goaltender. An extraordinarily positive record, .931 and .932 save percentages in back-to-back years, and he was one of the best goaltenders at the World Juniors in the showcase that he had there too. He had a .940 save percentage and a .163 goals against, and even though Trevor Zegras was the guy that confirmed the United States victory over Canada in the finals before it even happened, Knight, surprise, surprise, played a very big part in defeating Canada in the finals as he was an absolute brick wall in that game. Now, last season as well, he made his short debut with the Florida Panthers, and in the 4 games played he had at the end of the year, he literally won all of them. He went 4-0-0 in the 4 games he played, had a .232 goals against, a .919 save percentage, and in the playoffs, things got even better because he played 2 games, he won one of them, he lost one of them, but he had a .207 goals against and a .933 save percentage. Definitely some really good numbers for a first-year NHL goaltender who was only 19 years old. Now, this is where things get interesting. Because in the 2020-2021 campaign, you'll note that the Florida Panthers had 3 goaltenders that suited up for them in the season. Chris Driedger, Spencer Knight, and Sergei Bobrovsky. Chris Driedger had the best set of numbers with a .927 save percentage and a .207 goals against, and then you can see the rest of the grid following through. Spencer Knight, a .232 goals against and a .919, and Sergei Bobrovsky had the worst numbers of all, a .291 goals against and a .906 save percentage in 31 games played. In the playoffs, Bob went out there with an .841 save percentage and a .531 goals against. A very, very bad record, and Driedger's record in the postseason, to be fair, was not all too much better, but it was still just a tad better. Spencer Knight was the best goaltender, statistically speaking, in the postseason for all of these Florida Panthers guys, and because Driedger got picked up by Seattle later on, you had yourselves a really interesting conundrum in Florida. Okay, Sergei Bobrovsky is here, he is super expensive, and he had a bad year last year. Meanwhile, Spencer Knight, he is super cheap because he's on an entry-level deal. He was the best goaltender in the playoffs for us, and we were very confident in the way he was able to play. He was so poised, he was so calm, he was doing his thing. So, what happens next year? Driedger's gone, so we're not going to be thinking about him anymore. Who is the starter for the Florida Panthers? And if you take a look at where things stand this season for Florida, Bobrovsky and Knight have split a pretty pretty similar amount of games. Bobrovsky has 19 played, Knight has 13. However, let's go over Spencer Knight and his game log just to see how things have gone for the young goaltender in his limited sample size this year. The month of October saw him kick off his campaign with a pretty good start, a .929 save percentage and a .195 goals against in 3 games played. He had himself a really good performance against the Tampa Bay Lightning, limiting them to 1 goal for. They let in 3 against Arizona, so that wasn't great, but they still won the game because they scored 5. And then the shootout loss against Boston was a pretty good Spencer Knight game too. However, you go over into the month of November, and this is where things start to take a little bit of a downturn. His save percentage for November is .888, and he has a .360 goals against average. Now, sure, he had some wins thrown in there, but a lot more losses too. It gets even worse when you go over to December and you see, okay, Spencer Knight had himself a sort of shutout, not really shutout, he came in relief and he ended up winning the game against Buffalo 7-4. But the next games after that, St. Louis a 4-3 loss, and then the Ottawa Senators an 8-2 loss, where he was on the ice for all 8 of the goals. Spencer Knight has gotten worse as the year has gone on. Statistically speaking, and confidence-wise, you could definitely see there is somewhat of a toll that's being taken on this young man, especially in a game where you let in 8 goals. He has a .789 save percentage in that game, and for the month of December, his total numbers go .862 save percentage and a .481 goals against average for a total of, oh boy, an .892 save percentage in 13 games. Not bad. Not that bad, I guess. Sergei Bobrovsky, though, has been good this year, and he has been the carrying force for most of these results for the Florida Panthers, getting a .917 and a .246 in the 19-game sample he has had. But this Bobrovsky revival has been kind of necessary, because Spencer Knight has not been the best version of himself this season. Now, they sent him down to the Charlotte Checkers because they actually had a whole bunch of problems with their protocols and whatnot, and in order to actually make the money work for them to call up players, Spencer Knight had to go down to the AHL. This is the release right here. We have recalled forwards Grigory Denisenko and Cole Schwindt, and defensemen Mike Kierstead and Chase Prisky from the Checkers. To call up these 4 players for tonight's game, the Panthers loaned Spencer Knight to the AHL, with Bobrovsky starting and Johansson claimed on waivers. Bonuses on Knight's cap hit give Florida flexibility to fill out the roster as they deal with the pandemic. That is really bad. Like, what a weird system. In order for your team to function properly, you need to claim a guy off of waivers and then send another guy that you had down to the AHL so that his bonuses no longer count for your cap, which allows your cap to function properly. What a terrible system. Like, I'm sorry, I don't know the fix to that, but that is so bizarre. Knight, however, has indeed played 1 game with the Checkers against the Bridgeport Sound Tigers, where against 32 shots he let in 27 goals. Okay, that's not great. I had a lot of people saying to me, yeah, okay, Spencer Knight's going down to the AHL. Sure, it's for the purposes of fixing the Florida Panthers and their salary cap situation, especially as they deal with protocols, but this will be an opportunity for the guy to go down there, get some confidence back, get some wins. And while that may be true going into the next few weeks here, especially coming back from the break, it hasn't been a good start so far. 1 game played and 5 goals against. Obviously, you don't want to see that go down for a young goaltender, but of course, he's still a young goaltender, as I just said, so he still has a boatload of time, and there's still a boatload of development to go through for this guy, mentally, physically, and just throughout the game of hockey. You know, he's learning new things every day, hopefully. So even though it has been a very rough start for Spencer Knight, he's struggling hard as of late. There's no real reason for panic over here. I just feel like I kind of wanted to make this video just to go over the guy in his season so far, and also use this as an opportunity to articulate how good Bobrovsky has been, because yeah, we all harped on this guy last year because of his contract. Hey, you know, super expensive goaltender and he's not performing. He is a below average goaltender in terms of the way he plays. But now you take a look at all these statistics. I mean, Knight is one of the worst statistical goaltenders in terms of expected goals against in the NHL, and Bobrovsky is one of the best. So really nice to see the contrast there, or excuse me, not nice. It's nice to see Bobrovsky bounce back. Kind of sucks to see Spencer Knight struggling so far, but of course, in this time, in like 2 or 3 years, we're not really going to be caring because Spencer Knight's going to be a '1 goaltender by then. Whether that's on Florida or not, I'm not really too sure. But let me know in the comments all your thoughts about Knight and his early season struggles. I hope you enjoyed this with 99. And bye.